Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasfrooshan to discuss working with your spouse. No, you're gonna get in trouble, I feel like. So, you recently celebrated your 14th wedding anniversary, and you have spent 13 years working with your wife, Christine. So, would you recommend it to other people?
Are you insane?
For the record, I did not come up with this idea, so.
But for a few reasons. I get asked about this.
You would not recommend it?
No.
Really?
Yeah. Well, let me explain. Hold on. Let me explain. I would not recommend it because, I'm not saying it's a good way, but I'm a very unique person. And people are laughing as I say that. But let me explain. Most people cannot compromise. Most people cannot pick and choose their battles. Most people have a hard time admitting when they're wrong, and most people cannot say, I'm sorry. So that's the checklist. If you can compromise.
We're all about lists.
Yeah, it's if you, always, there's a list always. So I'm extremely confident, I'm extremely driven, yada, 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 good and bad about that. But I have no problem saying, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, or I was wrong, I didn't have all the facts, or I changed my status when I changed my my perspective when there's new facts. And I pick and choose, and I divide and conquer that way. And as any wife would, she'd be kind of giving me her 2 cents. And I'm in kind of diplomatically, innocently say, oh, but you don't know what you're talking about, meaning like, oh, you don't have all the details, but it comes across as you don't know what you're talking about, and things escalate. So for me, my unique, craziness made a lot of sense to do that together and then kind of pick and choose and compromise, yada, yada. Most people can't do that. And
but wouldn't you say that if you can't do that with your spouse, you're not in a very good relationship?
You raise a bigger point. Most people get married to the wrong person.
Oof.
Yeah.
What are we even talking about?
Well, we should talk more about dating and relationships because these are all intertwined. A lot of guys end up like choosing wives who are actually not, good complementary companions to like partners, life partners. And I think a lot of, now this is gonna have to really be careful. I think we still live in a time, unfortunately, where a lot of women, even in Western cultures, but especially around the world, where roles are still a bit more traditional, for better or worse, pick a man for reasons that don't start with love and whatnot. So it's you kind of have to understand that you're not actually as complimentary as you would be, and that's why you go to work, to stay busy, and to kind of get away from, your home situation for
Ash
whatever
with the
reason.
hot takes.
No, but it's look, I used to write a lot of relationship, I used to give a lot of relationship advice, and people seemed to think what I said made sense, and ultimately.
Yeah, but that was 15 years ago.
Okay, fine. So I'm not on Tinder.
I think a lot has changed in 15 years, to be honest.
Look, but a lot has changed in 2 years. A lot changes in 6 months. Dramatic pace of change. But ultimately, we're animals, right? I mean, think of it. Like mankind has been around for millions or hundreds of thousands. Everything changes, especially with technology. But we are kind of animals in terms of instincts and how we, mate and survive and all that. I just read Sapiens.
Yeah, but the cave people didn't have Tinder.
They did not have Tinder, but they had other things.
And that's the name of this video.
The point I want to make is, if you have the right partner, you could then, in life, you could then partner with them in business. If you don't have the right partner, you probably cannot partner with them in business because there's money, there's a lot of other stuff that comes into it, but you may also then, in order to preserve your marriage, you need the escape of work and hanging out with the guys and all that, right? So I think it boils down to, if you are somebody that has the right partner and passes those 4 tests, then you could do it. But otherwise, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, that was the point I was kind of trying to make because, yeah, you and Christine complement each other really well. And, when one or the other isn't around, the dynamic is a little bit off.
But we try not to be in the same meetings too much.
I know.
Yeah, because otherwise I feel then
No, I meant more like when Christine was on maternity leave.
Yes, yeah. Well, to be very honest, it's not a coincidence that WatchMojo became successful when she came back, because I actually had to for lack of better words, it was like kind of having a board where I kind of had to justify why we're doing, because even I had to think it through. So it's not really a coincidence, but it was also, again, like recognizing, like one thing I feel I'm very good at, and especially with the early team, the core nucleus, was giving them, instilling in them like the confidence and that you could walk through this wall. You don't need me to teach you anything. I'm just telling you, you could walk, figure it out. I can help you. And that's one thing I haven't really been able to do with like employees 30 to 60 because we're just too many, right? But so the point being basically that like I also recognize like Christine had a certain background, certain experience, but I mean, she's not my wife at the office. She's an executive. So I kind of also was good at like putting her in a position where she could succeed the same way I did with, I like to think, you, Raph, Kevin, Dick, Tom, and Harry, so to speak.
Is it, I mean, we just did another episode of Context where we talked about unplugging while on vacation. Is it difficult, like, when you go home at night and do you unplug? Do you discuss work? Like,
yeah, we do, and we try not to, especially around our kids who now at 11 and 9, but like when 11 and 8, but when the kids were, let's say, 7 and 4, when we kind of got into a discussion, it was like, not like it was a fight, but it sounded like an actual dispute where they're like, why are you fighting? We're like, we're not fighting, we're just talking about it. And that's the funny thing. We've never really, knock on wood, I mean, I've said and done stupid things, nothing that would harm a marriage, just being immature, stupid jokes that she's like, yeah, it's not funny. But the only time we've actually got yeah, exactly. But the only time we've actually gotten into disputes are when we have a disagreement about work. But again, because I pick and choose my battles. And look, even you guys, you talk me out of things, you talk me into things. So with Christine, it's just kind of amplified. There was a time when I felt like the executive that I was the harshest with or toughest on was Christine. And that was because I was very comfortable with her. Whereas like with others, I was always a bit more, you know, kid gloves.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, but I held back and I realized, and I almost at one point apologized to her and I said, you're right. I would never interrupt somebody else and I would never, and I kind of said, I have to stop that behavior because I don't want people to think that it's disrespectful and not reflective of how highly I think of you. And you know, that's been kind of an evolution. I think, thankfully, and this is good, over the course of the years, I've seen everybody lap me in ways where they can take over my duties if need be. And Christine is a good example of that. A couple of years ago when I made her president and editor-in-chief, it wasn't because she was my wife, it was just because, you know, you trust somebody and you get out of their way, so to speak.
All right. Well, what about you guys? Would you ever work with a spouse or family member? I have and do, and I recommend it. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, let us know in the comments and we will see you next time.